Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of the podcast, episode 0 of the Franchise Tag podcast. I am Gabe, this is Elijah. If you haven't caught any of our other videos before, we did a recap of the 2021 NFL Draft, went through all those picks, so definitely check those out if you haven't already. But that was pretty much our first attempts at any content creation on the football side of things. But this podcast going to be pretty chill, just going to be talking about current events going on in the NFL, some win-loss predictions, and some cool segments that we've spent some time creating. So, gonna be a pretty sick experience. Stick with us for the full season.
Jumping into off-season moves, it's kind of the obvious elephant in the room is the fact that a certain perennial Packers quarterback decided to go to the Jets, and his name isn't Brett Favre, and we're not actually traveling back in time. Um, Aaron Rodgers' whole off-season drama going into the darkness was a very funny um, and interesting situation where he said that he was going to retire and he went into the darkness and he came out and he was being, shipped around. He was being in trade talks and he was like, fine, I guess I won't retire. So now he supposedly has like 3 years in him and then give the team over to Zach Wilson.
Which is a very interesting dynamic. The whole Brett Favre was not a good mentor for Aaron Rodgers, but he turned out all right, and so Rodgers is trying to be a good mentor for a guy who's not turning out that well right now. And we'll see how well it goes. We'll see how well Aaron Rodgers does. It's kind of reminiscent of the Russell Wilson trade, but I do think Rodgers is a little bit more talented than Russell Wilson is. So I kind of see the Jets doing a little bit better than the Broncos did, but at the same time, it's a team that seemingly had all the pieces, a really good young receiver, a really good young running back, and a really good defense, and a veteran quarterback going there to try to win him a chip, which is what Brady did with the Bucks. So it's going to be
Yeah, I
just a
think I think Aaron Rodgers to the Jets is a lot more Tom Brady to the Bucks than it is Russell Wilson to the Broncos, just because the the aura that like Dalvin Cook signed there. Like people are looking to go to the Jets, and
nobody was looking to go to the
you're,
Broncos.
no one wants to do that, and no one looks to go to the Buccaneers. And then both of these like All Pro Hall of Fame quarterbacks go to those teams, and then they have like a flock following them. So no one wanted to go to the Broncos to join Russ. There was no following.
We'll talk a little bit about the Dalvin Cook news as well, because that's in the same vein as Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets. Dalvin Cook obviously went there because Rodgers went there. He said that he wanted to go somewhere where he could win, and I think that for Brees Hall fantasy owners, they're not happy, but I think Brees Hall is happy because he was starting to be given a full workload and got injured, and you saw Javante start to be given a full workload and get injured, and you've seen other running backs start to be given a full workload and get injured. But if you can spell them with a guy who can come in and not necessarily be a three down back, but be kind of like that relief back and still be good, not like a relief back where he goes in and you know they're not running the ball. It's not an equal threat, but still a threat. And if you've got somebody who can actually spell Brees Hall and kind of save his legs, I think they can go pretty far. And I think that's a good move for the Jets, especially with Rodgers restructuring his contract just to bring in Dalvin.
So I think that Brees Hall isn't hurt at all by Cook's addition. I think that Cook was kind of he's been injury prone. He had a little bit of a fumble issue last season. So with his Jets signing, I'm not like, oh, he's going to be the biggest addition and he's going to be the new starter. And Dalvin Cook being a relief back could be very dangerous.
So we'll move off the Jets a little bit and talk about a different historically bad franchise in the Bears,
Yeah.
who
Okay.
brought on DJ Moore with the help of the Texans in that final regular season game where they won, lost the first overall pick, and then the Panthers were able to trade up to the first, give him DJ Moore a couple first round picks, and Bryce Young, quarterback of the future for the Panthers. That's a different topic for a different segment a little bit down the line, but. I think DJ Moore to the Bears is a really good move for the Bears, and I think the Bears have executed a really, really fast rebuild in like the scale of other rebuilds. Like we saw them kind of fail with Mitch Trubisky and kind of just accept their loss there, and then draft Justin Fields a couple years later, and then they were I think a lot of casual NFL fans were ready to accept another Bears quarterback loss, but I mean, he was dealing with shoot, what's coach's name? Um,
Nagy.
yeah, Matt Nagy. He was dealing with Matt Nagy his first year, and then he was dealing with no talent his second year, which he also had to deal with his first year. Obviously, I'm not saying that they had a ton of talent his first year, but I think now he's in a prime position, and I've seen the general consensus about Fields kind of shift from he's a bust to wow, he's really good, and now to if he doesn't succeed this year, he's a
He's a
bust.
bust.
And I'm like, I can see it. I understand it. I see it. I don't fully agree. I think that giving him another year to kind of get back on track, and then if we don't see him improve this year, I think that's a terrible sign. But I think that, oh, the Bears didn't win the Super Bowl this year, Justin Fields is a bust. I think that's the wrong way to look at it.
Mhm. DJ Moore, I mean, his first reception for the team in preseason was a touchdown. Like, he is going to bring just a way different level of passing to this team. Like, they couldn't even conceive of before when who was their top like reception leader last season?
I'm looking that up right now.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been good. Wouldn't have been a good look for
No,
the
their
team.
starting receivers were Darnell Mooney, and um, he wasn't in the full season. But let me see. It was Equinemius St. Brown, Dante Pettis, and Darnell Mooney were three of um, the more consistent starters. And then you had N'Keal Harry, you had Chase Claypool kind of get in there a little bit. Velus Jones Jr. is looking like a bit of a bust, but um,
Yeah,
yeah, I think
it's
their
it's
receiving
a bit
core
of a
has
rough group.
their receiving core has gone from one of the worst in the league to a semi-competitive one where DJ Moore is definitely going to be the wide receiver one there. That's no question. And I think Darnell Mooney's a very good wide receiver too. So I don't think he's a wide receiver one by any means on a team, and by that I mean
They
like dominant threat. But
last season they didn't have any wide receiver one talent. Like it was a bunch of guys that could be good wide receiver twos and threes, but no one was going to be an actual threat. And so when you don't have to game plan for an actual threat and that opens up other people, it's just going to be DJ Moore like running the show, or it's going to be everyone else running the show, and DJ Moore is going to like kind of fall down. But I think DJ Moore is still going to be making big impact plays every game.
yeah, and I think the other thing is when you bring in a wide receiver one, it's not just expecting performance and production out of that wide receiver. It's expecting him and his aura to be able to create for others, and that's why not every wide receiver, as great as they might be, they can't all be wide receiver one. There's not a ton of players that have that wide receiver one feel, but DJ Moore is certainly one of them.
Yeah, for sure, he's going to be a big impact player. But I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna take this guy. I feel like he's probably not someone you would very much care to harp on here, but I did my little ranking of these offseason moves. So Aaron Rodgers, we started off with DJ Moore. I had second, and Derek Carr to me is going to be a big improvement over the shit show that the Saints quarterbacking has been since Breeze left.
Don't
And it's
disrespect my
like,
boy Jameis like that ever again. I'm sorry.
oh, Jameis has played how many games for them healthy?
Shut up.
Okay,
Stop
good.
disrespecting him.
I honestly, this Derek Carr hate came out of nowhere, and I feel like it kind of coincided with a new coach taking over the Raiders. And you know, I'm not saying like Derek Carr is gonna go in the Hall of Fame. Like he's not. He's a serviceable quarterback, and that's kind of all he's been. But they haven't had serviceable quarterbacks. They've had like
The corpse of Andy
guys who
Dalton.
are yeah. They've had guys that are like, all right, this is my last starting stint of my career in the league. And so when you get Derek Carr and you're pairing him with hopefully a healthy Michael Thomas, dude, what the hell has Michael Thomas done in the past 3 years?
Nothing. He has
Um,
done nothing.
yeah, Chris Olave, you have a good offense going, especially when Alvin Kamara comes back from his suspension. But even then, they have the little band-aid of Jamal Williams punching those goal line, the 1 yard TDs that he loved to get for the Lions last year. They have a good defense. They got Cam Jordan. They got Tyron Matthew. Uh, we talked a bit about some other players in our draft reviews for them, but Paulson I can't fucking say his last name. Well,
Paulson Adebo.
Paulson, Debo, and then Pete Werner. Like they have a good group that I like, and Derek Carr is such an increase in talent to me. So I had him there at 3 over a lot of
So
other guys.
okay, I am not a Derek Carr fan. I'm also not a Derek Carr hater. I'm just indifferent. I don't think he's great. I don't think that he is. I don't know how to say
Better
it.
than Andy Dalton.
I don't like pocket passers
Mm,
in certain like circumstances. I think Joe Burrow is a very good pocket passer, and he's not your typical pocket passer because he also has the threat to like get out of the pocket and create. And I didn't watch a ton of Raiders games because I really didn't care. But when you move and you get Devonte Adams to the team, and yes, Josh McDaniels is your head coach, and that's gonna just throw everything into the gutter. But when you've got a quarterback who a lot of people say is pretty solid, and you add a wide receiver one, like we were just talking about, you should be getting a lot of production out of him and wins. And they just didn't. Like, they were not getting the wins that they should have. And it is 100% partially on the defense. That defense was atrocious. But you've got to be able to win some of these games if you're the Raiders and you've got this team that's supposedly so good with such a great tight end in Darren Waller who can't seem to stay healthy and such a great wide receiver in Devonte Adams who did perform very well and no other receiver I feel like performed extremely well. There was a lot of hype around Hunter Renfro and he just underperformed and there was, who else is a receiver for the Raiders? You don't know their names because Derek Carr wasn't feeding them the ball.
Darren
Um,
Waller.
Yeah, exactly. Like Devonte Adams performed well, and Derek Carr performed well when throwing to Devonte Adams. But I feel like they've never had success with Derek Carr, and whether or not that's his fault, we'll find out this season because he's going to the Saints. But I just don't see it as that huge of a move. Um, I do think that Derek Carr is better than Jimmy Garoppolo and better than Andy Dalton and better than a lot of these other guys. I just don't see it as like this franchise altering move that's going to put the Saints back in the spotlight and
Yeah,
have them
I'm
winning a
not
ton of
saying
games.
he's gonna end up being, leading them to an FC championship where they might happen to lose off of no call or anything, but they they're gonna be better than last year, and I think Carr's a reason why. Who
I
did
got
you have on your next up?
I didn't make like a
Up?
ranking or anything, but I just got one other guy I want to talk about, and that's OBJ.
Yeah.
He's gonna make an impact in Baltimore whether you like it or not, and if he can't stay healthy, he'll make an impact for the couple weeks that he can. The only place where he has statistically not performed is in Cleveland, and he gets a pass for that because it's
Yeah.
Cleveland. But everywhere else he's gone, he's made an impact, he's made a difference, and I don't care about the injuries, he still has something left. And whether or not he ends up performing at this Offensive Player of the Year level or this Super Bowl MVP level or anything like that, like we kind of saw from him with the Rams, like whether or not he does any of that, he's still going to make a difference because he has that wide receiver one aura again. And in this case, it's not a wide receiver one aura that comes with a ton of gushing talent that will 100% pan out. It's the wide receiver one aura in that you know the name. You 100% know the name. I don't care how many games of football you watched. You know the name Odell Beckham Jr. And if you're a defense going up against him, you're gonna watch him because he's a big name and he's a big personality who loves to get the ball. And if you don't double him, there's a chance that he succeeds. And if he succeeds, he feeds off that. And then also, that wide receiver one aura is going to free up Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers. I don't think
Yeah.
Rashad Bateman's a wide receiver one. He just isn't. And through the first 2 seasons, he has not performed like he would belong on a roster at all. But he was trying to be that wide receiver one. And you just can't expect a wide receiver that would be better suited to play wide receiver three to perform like a wide receiver one. And so I think if he moves into that wide receiver three position, which I think he will, I don't think Zay Flowers is going to be a wide receiver three. Uh,
Yeah, I think
I think they'll look
it's
really scary.
definitely. I think you get rid of OBJ from this Ravens roster and you just plug in like a, you know, vet on his last leg who isn't OBJ, and it's not nearly the same team. It's not going to have the same plan going into the season at all. Like OBJ is what's going to like make this team's passing scheme the way he's going to like take the top off and open it up for Zay underneath. He's gonna do a lot, like you said, and he's gonna add to their wins. And that's kind of how I ranked it. I was like, who's gonna add most to the wins of their team? Aaron Rodgers over Zach was easy to be top there, but
Yeah.
moving into the last player I wanted to speak of, I went with Miles Sanders, and Miles Sanders, he's now in Carolina, he's now a Panther, and with the way that the Panthers were running the ball last year, with I can't pronounce it. It was something Freeman, right? It was with
Foreman,
Royce.
Deontay Foreman.
Deontay Foreman. I mix them up all the time, but Deontay Foreman was getting the rock for the Panthers, and they were like running their way into some like close games and kind of blowing out the Lions. And that hurts, but they fucking destroyed us, and it was him running the ball. And so they have the means, and now they just got like, oh, you know that running back who like was on that team that went to the Super Bowl and they had a really good run game all year? Yeah, let's go get him.
That's the
And
Eagles O line. I don't think that's Miles Sanders' ability.
I mm, I think that it's a bit of
Okay,
both,
yeah,
and
combination for sure. Sorry, don't come after me,
he's
Miles
going
Sanders
to
stance.
another team that also was able to make giant gaping holes for their rush. So I think it's going to be more of the same for him.
I just
Most likely.
think there's a huge difference between the Eagles O line and the Panthers O line. Like the Eagles O line is number one. No matter who you ask, it's number one. So, like, yeah,
I'm not going to argue with you on that. I just think that a good runner going to a team that had a good run blocking scheme is going to end up being good. Shocker. But yeah, that's why I had Miles Sanders in there to speak on a little bit more than a G Hop or any other number of
Adam
names to
Thielen.
speak on. Yeah, Thielen, like those are all like guys that weren't so talked about. I feel like Miles Sanders was slightly more talked about than Thielen or DJ Chark or the
DJ
whole
Chark too.
team.
Yeah,
Panthers offense. It felt like everyone moved.
yeah. I don't think they're gonna be as bad as everybody thinks they are. I don't. I actually won't confirm or deny that before I check
I
my
will spoil
my
nothing.
pick'ems because I don't know how badly I had them doing, but I don't think I had them doing too well. But we've talked about I think the offseason moves for long enough, so
Yeah.
we'll move on to the preseason recap. I was I didn't watch too many preseason games. I was in Hawaii for part of it, so I wasn't super like invested in it.
All
I
right.
did see Dorian
Really cool.
Thompson-Robinson perform very well, and
Yeah.
I saw um, I saw Russell Wilson do. He started rough. He started
He
very
did start
rough.
pretty bad.
I was
The
watching that
first
game
few
and I was just
drives.
like, he hasn't improved at all. He hasn't improved at all. He hasn't improved at all. And they kept him in until halftime, man. And I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
they're killing this man. They want him to retire, get out of that contract.
They were like, let's break him morally so we can move on. Uh, yeah, that was a rough game. Uh, but yeah, uh, DTR is we've spoken on it privately, but I
The
want him to start.
Yeah,
Like,
he's the future at quarterback for the Browns. He's the
yeah,
first one they've hit on, and he was a fifth rounder.
I don't
Um,
care how long they have Deshaun for before they can cut him without a loss. I hope they cut him and take a loss.
yeah.
I'll say.
Um, another guy that I mean, we're getting into the rookie territory right now, but
Mm-hmm.
watching Anthony Richardson was very interesting.
Yeah,
And his not I don't think it was his first pass attempt, but he threw a pick. It was the first interception he threw, and
I
regardless
think
of
it
the
was his
outcome of
first.
the play, it was like the most impressive throw I have seen from just a technical standpoint, where he just kind of flicked it, and you could tell the receiver did not expect that ball to make it there by any means, because he's on the Colts and he's had the corpse of Matt Ryan and Nick Foles throwing to him recently, and so they don't have the same zip that Anthony Richardson has. But man, he's got zip. He's It's going to be a rough first season. He's going to throw a lot of interceptions. He's going to make a lot of mistakes, but he's also going to show off that he has supreme like physical ability to just make things happen.
Yeah, it's an odd comparison to make, but Peyton Manning rookie year interceptions and Anthony Richardson rookie year interceptions, I could see being very similar stats. Obviously, Richardson is not the statue that Payne was, Granted, Peyton was less of a statue as a rookie, but he's been a statue majority that anyone can remember of Peyton Manning.
Man, a statement to pull out of this video. Anthony Richardson has the potential to be better than Peyton Manning.
Whoa, I didn't say that. I said he's gonna have the same amount of interceptions as rookie Peyton.
So I did some college film study on Anthony Richardson just to kind of get the feel for watching college film and seeing what I can take from it. And seeing him dance around in the pocket reminded me a lot of seeing Lamar dance around in the pocket.
Yeah.
And it's there's an innate sense of pressure, of movement, of the flick of the ball. There's just you have being a quarterback is so much more than being able to throw the ball and being able to move. And it's also more than just like being able to read a defense. That is a huge part of it. And if you can't do that, then you've got somebody like Colin Kaepernick who just can't find a job because he can't read a defense. Or you've got somebody like Brett Favre who didn't know what defensive packages were
He
at
had to be
all.
lying.
I don't think he
I don't know
was.
what a
Do you
nickel
know
was.
do you know how
Well,
many interceptions that man threw? That man was Jameis before Jameis, okay? It was insane. I as a
hey,
person growing
Favre
up with a
cleaned it up his
Packers
whole
fan as a
career.
father, all right. I heard my fair share of things about Brett Favre. Um, but anywho, I like what Richardson has. I like the tools he's got. I like his pocket movement. I like his presence. I like his poise, and he's a team captain as a rookie, which was voted on by his teammates.
Years. Yep.
So
Um,
that's impressive, if nothing
while we're
else.
kind of sticking to this rookie quarterback talk, we've gone through DTR. We went through AR, no longer 15, but AR. Bryce Young, she's a CJ Stroud.
And Mayo
Out
Man.
of the, yeah, just shut up. Out of the ones that are projected to start, um, which one of those do you think has the best situation they're walking into? Bryce, CJ, or AR?
I think coming out of the draft, I would have definitely said AR just because the Colts had a very good O line a few years ago, and because of injuries, it wasn't that good last year. But it's starting to get back to form. And then also, they don't have like a terrible receiving core, and they also didn't like don't have a terrible running back. They've got Jonathan Taylor, and so he's just in a good offensive situation until Jim Irsay went running his mouth, and Jonathan Taylor doesn't want to play there anymore. And so
Yeah,
now they're going to be
they
running with whoever they have at running back behind JT, and the O line if it can perform well. And I still think the receivers are pretty good. They got Michael Pittman, they got Josh Downs in the draft, who I was pretty relatively high on, and then they've got like
Pierce.
Alec Pierce too. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think that I think he's still in a pretty good situation, but I think they're all in pretty equal situations
yeah,
where like they've got some semblance of an O line, like they've got pieces. Their entire O line is not good, but they each team has pieces of an O line that is okay, and they've got a receiver or two that is passable with DJ Chark, with Adam Thielen, or with Alec Pierce and Josh Downs and Michael Pittman, or with Robert Woods and whoever else, Tank Dell.
uh,
Tank Dell.
Dell. I'm not even sure if he's like actually wide receiver 3 for the team.
He's not on the depth chart officially as of a few days ago, but I think he's gonna be. And
Nico
so,
Collins, Noah Brown, are the
yeah,
top 3.
I think that they're all heading into pretty similar situations with solid running backs, decent O lines, decent receiving cores, where they're not set up to succeed extremely well, but they're set up okay.
Yeah.
Um,
I had the same opinion basically. Like they all have a very similar situation. I think the only one I could really point as being worse is Stroud because that wide receiver room doesn't stack up to the other two, and Stroud in the preseason was getting fucking pressured. He
yeah,
it felt like there was one pass I saw for probably like his the first time seeing him, that first drive of preseason, there was like one pass that it felt like, oh, he doesn't have any pressure, but then you rewind it and it's a bootleg, so it's like,
yeah.
uh,
Another thing is the Colts are the only team that still have a future because the Panthers gave up their future trading up to number one, and the Texans gave up their future trading back up to number three. So both of those teams have eliminated their possibilities of getting a really good future going in future drafts because of those trade ups. And the Colts just kind of sucked, and so they were able to pick at four. And
yeah,
One thing I have to say this because I was so adamant that I wanted it to happen, like leading up to the draft.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
wanted so badly for the Seahawks to get Anthony Richardson because that would have just been a perfect situation where a raw prospect can sit behind Geno for a year, and then if, you know, Justin Herbert, Tyrod Taylor punctured lung thing happens, then we've got poor Geno, of course, in that
poor
situation.
Gino.
But then we've got somebody coming in who's got receivers, who's got an O line, who's got a running game, who's got a stellar head coach, who's got an okay defense. Like he'd be going
Matt
into a
Patricia.
perfect situation. And instead they were one pick too late. And I was so happy leading up to the draft because of all the reports that Mayo Man was going to the Colts, and
Honestly,
I was
I was
like, it tore me apart when the Colts took him. I was so mad for like
so
the next week.
each of us had the we went through, we watched some quarterback film, I watched some wide receiver DB film. I just went through a whole lot of different like phases, just kind of getting an overview, trying to get used to it. And God, Will Levis was my least favorite anything. And any pass I saw from Will Levis, I was like, why is this man even projected to be in the first round? And guess what? I was validated. Oh
Because
my
he didn't go
God,
in the
come
first round.
draft day, I was so happy he didn't go in the first round. But man, if Gabe wasn't mad on the flip side that he didn't go at number three.
Yeah, no, I wanted him to go at 4 so bad.
Mm.
Um, but I think so. I think that's kind of it for the rookies I'm super excited about. The other ones are either injured or not really going to make a huge impact. JSN got injured, so he might be
Yeah.
out week 1, but he's already back
Um,
practicing. There was he had some like semi-severe injury where they were like, yeah, he might be placed on IR, out for a few weeks, and he's back at practice. So I don't know what he's made of, but is something other than person stuff. Um, and
uh,
then the were there good? Oh, Bijan.
dude, I I don't know.
I
How
I'm
do you have you seen
I'm
clips?
so
Have you seen?
indifferent. I am
I don't get
rookie
it either.
rookie run.
I
No, okay, no.
I get him. Like I get the prospect hype, but I don't like the hype of like he's going to be offensive rookie of the year when you have so many quarterbacks and good wide receivers in this draft.
I just think that the problem with everybody is they're either going to a situation that doesn't favor them, or they're injured. So it's either JSN, where he's probably not going to suit up week 1. If he does, he's going to be limited playing time, or Quentin Johnson is going to, or Johnston, sorry, is going to a decent situation, and then Zay Flowers is going to a good situation. But outside of those three, I don't see anybody other than Bijan that is on offense and in a perfect situation for them, because the
Was Jordan
Falcons,
Addison?
but he's competing with Jettas. Like he's competing with the best receiver in the league with Kirk O'Chains as his
Fair enough,
quarterback.
but he's the second on the team probably. Can't imagine they have a better depth than that.
I don't know. I don't like, yeah, okay. If we even if we include Jordan Addison though, I still think Bijan is in the best situation for him, where he's going to a team that
They're going to run
loves
the
to
ball.
run
Fair
the
enough.
ball.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to take all the carries because Tyler Algier is on the team still, and so he's going to be a relief back for Bijan. But if you think Bijan isn't running out there for every play that he's at full stamina for,
Mm-hmm.
you are sorely mistaken. He is a receiving threat. He is a running threat. He is everything.
I wouldn't be
So
surprised if they instead didn't give him any relief snaps and they just threw Tyler Algier out there and ran two running back sets
yeah, that
instead
could
of Bijan
100%
Green.
happen as well. And I want to say they have another running back on their roster other than Cordero Patterson.
Carroll.
Um,
I
I want to say they've got another
don't
guy
know
that's like
those
mid, but
much.
he's okay. Like he would be a decent relief back. But I situational, I get the Bijan for offensive rookie hype. Um, but as far as like, would I have picked him at 8 if I'm the Falcons? Probably not. I probably, well, I don't know who else I would have picked, but I don't know. Running backs early kind of doesn't make sense to me. But also Bijan, there's, I guess this will be my final thoughts on him. There's a reason he went so high, and that reason is probably because guys who watch a very small amount of film like me were not the ones grading him and telling teams where to take him. It was like organizations that have like sections dedicated to scouting these guys and watching film and interviewing them and getting to know them. And Bijan is a great person. I don't know if you've seen any of his interviews, but he's just like really cool guy. And so I hope he succeeds just off of that. But I just personally like I'm indifferent. Like I said,
Yeah.
take him, don't take him. Who cares?
I I have one thing of note left for my rookies here. Had to obviously give some love to my team.
No,
Um,
none.
Ryan Branch
That's fair,
fucking
actually.
flies. uh, ever since draft day, after that first round, in the first day of the draft, I was very like
Dude, he was pissed.
question marks. I was like, what the hell is going on here? I trust our GM, but what the hell is going on here? And go from that to seeing the second day of the draft and seeing Brian Branch, I was like, I don't care. Everything's perfect in the world. Everything is great. I love every other pick we've ever made. Brian Branch literally did that for me. And watching the preseason, motherfucker flies. Like he laid a hit on like one of the first drives that he was in on. Just laid an absolute hit on the running back that caught it out in the flat, and that shit was so hype.
I got two things to add on rookies. Um, Darnell Wright at 10 to the Bears. Big. They needed offensive line help. They got offensive line help. Even if he's mediocre and didn't deserve to go that early, who cares?
Better than what they
It's,
had.
yeah, offensive tackle is offensive tackle. And then the second thing is my defensive rookie of the year favorite, Christian Gonzalez. He's an
Your
athletic.
team's love.
Yes, okay. Hear me out though. He's a very athletic, very good cornerback going to a team with a system that favors cornerbacks that was able to make Jack Jones look like an all-star, that was able to make J.C. Jackson look like he should be paid as one of the highest corners in the league, that just always takes corners and produces with them. And that's with guys that were, you know, past the first, like well outside the first round in some cases. Jack Jones, I think, was like a fourth rounder. And now they've got a guy that was rumored to be going right around where Devon Witherspoon went, but Devon Witherspoon went at 5, and the
Yeah.
Patriots snagged Gonzalez at 17 after trading
17.
back.
17 is the biggest fucking mindfuck.
And that's
Sorry for my language, but that was literally insane.
yeah. I expect every pick past the Bears, I was like, oh, I bet it's Christian Gonzalez. Oh, I bet it's Christian. Oh, I bet it's, and it never was. And I saw him go to the Patriots, and I was like, okay, that's your offensive rookie of the year right there.
Yeah, we were sitting there at 12 and we got Jameer Gibbs, and I was like, I don't know why we're taking a running back here when Christian Gonzalez is on the board. And then our next pick was right after Christian Gonzalez was gone, when I just had my fingers crossed the whole time for Christian Gonzalez to fall to 18, and I saw the Patriots, and I was like, it's not happening.
Yeah, but I think that's basically it for the rookies. I don't think there's anybody else. I mean, Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman going one pick after another was really cool to see.
That was fun.
Um,
We haven't mentioned Jalen Carter. I'm not opening that bag of worms.
I don't
so
care. I don't
Yeah.
care. I really don't.
Yeah.
So, jumping into the cuts segment where we're going to talk about people that were cut, we'll start off with the Patriots and whatever the hell they're cooking. I thought Malik Cunningham did great in the preseason. I thought he looked like the QB2. I thought he looked amazing. And then Zappy got cut, and I was like, okay, cool. So we're rocking with Malik as the QB2. I love that. So glad to see it. And then Malik got cut, and I was like, all right, so we're rocking with no QB2. Understandable. And then they signed Matt Corral. And I don't know why. I don't. I mean, there was a tweet I saw. Let me find this real quick. I think I sent it to you.
Wait. The
I got it.
Patriots have 2 quarterbacks. They have 2 running backs rostered. They have Juju, Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker, and then they have 5 other wide receivers rostered, 3 of which are questionable, 2 of them on IR.
One of them, Taekwon Thornton, shout out.
Yeah. Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki are their 2 tight ends. They have a very strangely rostered team that is very O-line heavy.
In Bill we trust. In Bill we trust. So the tweet, the Patriots traded the pick that was used to select Matt Corral to the Panthers for a 2022 fourth and a 2023 third. In the 4th round of 2022, with that pick that they got, they took Bailey Zappi. With the 3rd rounder the next year, they took Marty Mapu, I think that's how you say it, who is a linebacker who's looked really good through training camp preseason. And now they have Matt Corral, which is who was picked with that 3rd round pick. So it was just kind of a cool full circle moment. Um, and who knows? Maybe he is really good. I didn't watch any college tape of him, so I have no knowledge of how he looks because he has not played in the NFL. So
Yeah, they could have had MC at quarterback spot too, and instead they went with a different MC.
yeah. And then I don't really have any other notable cuts. Do you? I have one other one that'll.
Nathan Nathan Rourke, but I need to
Yeah,
make sure
Jags
that he was
QB
actually cut and
and
not
not just
that
practice
injured.
squatted. Well, you figured that out. Will Greer was the Cowboys quarterback. They
Correct.
traded. He's practice squad. Will Greer, straight up cut by the Cowboys, but they gave him preseason week 3, starting the entire game to show what he had, and he showed the hell out. He was absolutely like phenomenal in that preseason game, and it was just really cool to see. And I hope that somebody picks him up.
Sorry, I just opened up our Twitter and I see the Bryce Barringer.
The what? Oh,
Bryce Barringer.
I'll insert the picture into the on screen right now. That's who we're
Ooh,
looking at.
oh,
Um, I'll save it right now so that I have it for later. Yeah,
all right.
Bryce
I'm gonna move
Behringer.
on.
Yeah, we'll go into. We've talked for quite a while longer than I think we expected to, but we'll go into kind of the different segments that we have planned that are going to be recurring throughout the year that we're going to probably bring up every single week, um, and then kind of talk about a little bit of what to expect from the regular season episodes, and then we'll get into the start of our first segment, which I'm very excited for.
All right, I'll intro us off first with the lesser of the two segments. The one that's gonna be a little less high maintenance, I guess you could say. Um, we have a NFL bingo card we will each be making, and this bingo card is going to just consist of whatever prediction we want to make. It can be, as I said, Anthony Richardson. I could put Anthony Richardson matches Peyton Manning's end of year interception record. Or I could have that. And if at the end of the year that hits, then I get to put a little nice green checkbox on that. It could even be something as simple as like Tank Dell has a game that's over like 200 yards, like something outlandish. Not We're not trying to take too many little freebies on this whole thing. Where I'm gonna say like Patrick Mahomes wins double-digit games. I
And
mean, he
that's
could not if he gets injured, I guess.
that's
But
going to be something that's kind of consistent through every segment that we have. This is all for entertainment. We're not trying to win. We are both, in this sense, content creators. We are trying to make a piece of content that is enjoyable for viewers to watch. So we're not going to be going out there and being tryhards and writing, "The Chiefs win one game this year. The Eagles win one game this year." Oh, I have bingo. So it's gonna be more of like maybe sprinkle a freebie or two in there, like Patrick Mahomes is the 1 seed, and even
yeah,
that's not really a freebie because
yeah,
it's not always
everything
gonna
changes
happen.
year to year.
But yeah,
And a freebie based on all these talks about like offensive rookie of the year we just went through. Freebie could be considered putting Bijan, but like, at the end of the year we'll
if
find
he
out.
tears his
We don't
ACL
know.
in week 2, obviously that's out the window. So it's gonna
So
be also placement. Yeah.
mm,
Um, it's also going to be placement of
yeah,
these squares to kind of. I think what we should do is we should come up with a list of things and completely randomize them. But if we don't want to do that, we could be a little bit strategic with the placement. We'll ultimately decide later on. I think that's about it for bingo. It's pretty self-explanatory.
yeah.
There will be a free space in the middle. That's a necessity for bingo,
Bingo's stable. Come on,
of
let's believe
course.
it.
And then we'll do a little update every week. We'll probably end up just flashing them up on the screen and saying these are our bingo cards, just for a reminder. Keep an eye out for any of these things happening. And then if something does happen, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about why we picked that thing. We'll talk about how quickly we expected it to happen and how quickly it actually did happen. Go in a little bit more in depth stuff like that. Um, and then we get into the segment that we both birthed, but I drafted up the contract for, and that is going to be called the NFL stock market. So I'm going to run through a
I'm gonna
lot of
go with Doc, but whatever.
stock watch, whatever. We can call it whatever we want. It's the NFL stock market. Um, do you want to go with stock watch? We can redo that.
No, don't redo it.
Okay. I'm going to be running through a lot of information right now, so buckle up. I will probably reiterate this at some point in the near future, but basic information. The values that we were able to come up with for the start of the year is the win percentage plus $50 per playoff win rounded to the next 25. So, for example, the Lions' win percentage last season was .529. They had no playoff wins. So, rounded up, it would be 550.
That's nothing new.
The the Chiefs' win percentage last season was .824. They had 3 playoff wins, so it would be plus 150, 50 for each playoff win. It would round up to 975 being their value. Every member, we were planning on having Matt with us, but Matt is lame. So
Ooh,
we will both
roasted.
Elijah and I will both start off our first season with $1,500 to buy with. This is all fake money, by the way. We're not actually making a
Just don't
fake
buy
stock
anything.
market.
My
Um,
wife would be upset.
so 1,500 franchise tagged dollars to start off the season. And then in the future, inevitably, when this segment goes on for future seasons of franchise tagged, we will gain $1,000 at the start of the season. That number is subject to change depending on how easily we're able to accrue money during the season and such.
And how
Um,
easily we go bankrupt.
exactly. Members will be able to buy stock in a team during the first episode of the podcast, episode 0. That is
This
episode
one.
0. First episode, episode 0, not episode 1. Bit confusing. You'll get the hang of it.
Deal.
The market will close completely until the conclusion of the week 4 of the NFL regular season, those games. Until those are all done, the market is entirely closed. During that time, no selling, no buying. During the initial buying period, during episode 0, right now, you are not required to spend all $1,500, but just to keep the content interesting, you're encouraged to use at least half just to, make it fun. Teams with 0 wins following the market open after week 4 will not be free. Those teams have a base value of $100. Now we get into some of the restrictions. That was just kind of the base information to introduce you to what what the NFL stock market is going to be like. During the initial buying period, which is this episode right now, members will be allowed to purchase up to 1 single share per team per member. For example, Elijah can buy a share of the Lions. I can also buy a share of the Lions. Elijah cannot buy another share of the Lions right now. After the market opens, so after regular season week 4, that limit will be increased to 3. For example, Elijah decides to hold on to his Lions stock from the initial buying period and then buy 2 more shares after the market opens. I decide to sell my share of the Lions stock and buy 3 shares of the Patriots stock. Elijah cannot buy another share of Lions stock because that would exceed 3 total. So we're going by total number, not purchased during that period. The limit will be increased to 5 shares per team per member after regular season week 8, which is 4 weeks after that stock market opens.
Open. Yep.
These purchase limits serve 2 purposes. This is a little bit of behind the scenes info. If you want to know it, you can. It's to keep any one person from just buying all of the same stock and just holding on to it because they think a team is going to do better. And then it's also to keep any one person from buying all the stock and having that team suck and then just going bankrupt right away. The idea of this segment in this NFL stock market is to create an interesting piece of content
Entertainment. Yes.
and not end by week 6 because we're all bankrupt. Last thing we're going to touch on is going to be called day trading. That is something, if you're in the stock market, you know what it means. In this market, it would be described as buying up a bunch of shares of a team and selling it the week after it wins.
Chiefs versus Cardinals.
It's not strictly prohibited, but it will be frowned upon in certain settings. So, for example, during the podcast recording before week 15, Matt maxes out his shares of the Chiefs stock at 5 before they play the Raiders. Then, after week 15, we record week 16. Before the Chiefs play a tough matchup against the Bengals, Matt sells all 5 shares because of that increase in wins, increase in value. That is not allowed. But if it's more of a toss-up game, like if Matt fully believes the Seahawks are going to beat the 49ers in week 14, but isn't so sure about their ability against the Eagles the next week, he buys 2 shares of the Seahawks in week 14. The Seahawks end up winning, and he sells them off before they play the Eagles. it's not as frowned upon because you're taking a risk. If you're
Yeah,
taking
we
a
want.
gimme game, that's not
Yeah,
cool. If you're taking a risk, that's awesome. Do it.
we want to go for underdogs. We're not trying to, just bolster the bank share of fake money in our entertainment-based segment. We
Yeah.
we want it to be fun to follow, and that's why we want to maybe take a little gamble and put all our money on the Texans beating so and so.
Yeah. And again, none of these are hard rules with the day trading stuff. It's just gonna kind of gonna be self-regulated. We are both in this to make something interesting happen, so we probably won't be doing anything crazy. Um, but I think that's enough explaining the segment, and we're gonna actually dive into it right now. We'll flash the logo up on the screen right in the middle. Boom, you see it.
Yeah,
Stock watch.
we might
Very
be
cool logo.
flashing the cost of the teams. I don't know.
I'll
But
probably put them up eventually, but we're just kind of gonna go one by one and buy our stocks. Again, we're starting with 1,500, and as we buy them, we will say how much they're costing and how much we have left over. So if you want to start it off.
all right, I will start this off by matching the example given in that rules. I will buy up one stock, the Lions. I will not spoil anything for a future segment coming next week when we do our season predictions. But they're my team of choice. They are my fan base that I claim to, and I will be selecting them first off the bat.
I will personally be taking the division rival of the Lions. We kind of talked about not doing the Bears just because it's such a kind of easy one to do. They're so cheap, but I like the Bears. I'm all in on the Justin Fields DJ Moore hype train. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick up one share of Bears stock, and that one is costing me $200 after the formula has been applied. So I'm down to 1,300 after that.
Yes, and the cost of the Lions was 550, which means that for me to profit after the initial 4 weeks, they would need to win at least three of those 4 games.
And just as a clarifier, real quick, we are going to be actively updating the information of their values based on their current season record. So after those 4 weeks, we only have 4 games to go on. So teams are going to be worth $100 base fee if they've won no games, 250 if they've won one game, 500 if they've won 2 games, 750 if they've won three, and a grand if they've won all four. And there's not, and every week it'll get more and more difficult to map the price, and it'll be more, there'll be more and more variance because it's not just going to be divided by four. And the initial cost is based on last season's final values based on their record last season plus playoff wins. We already went over that, but just to reiterate.
Yeah. Now, do you want to kind of snake draft this and you pick your next up?
Yeah, I'll go next. I am going to take a more expensive team than the Lions. I'm going to take a share of Jaguars stock.
Ooh.
I believe in the prince that was promised and his abilities as a quarterback with
You're gonna
Calvin
stop using
Ridley.
that.
We didn't talk about Calvin Ridley because it wasn't an offseason
Calvin,
move, but
yeah,
huge, huge, huge.
huge increase, huge. Honestly, yeah. We
And
should have, but
Christian Kirk,
it's
very good wide receiver too,
oh,
doesn't have wide receiver one aura. That's again, I'm gonna harken back to that because I just came up with that on the fly when we were recording this. Feels great.
no, nothing. Okay, moving on. I have a slightly risky one, I'll admit, but I'm going to be picking up a team that is going to be costing me $300, and that is going to be the Rams. Now,
Okay.
interesting pick. You
Very
gotta agree.
interesting pick. No.
Yeah, I think they've kind of been written off, and I like the matchups they have coming into the season early. So
Okay.
I'd like to grab them early before any steam might accumulate.
Wait, I said 600 for the Jags, right? So I'm down to 700.
Yes.
Okay. And you're up again for your
Yep.
last pickup.
Snaking it back here. Uh, I'm going to be selecting my bitter rival, the Bears, as well. I didn't want to be picking them right off the bat. I kind of wanted to start with my more expensive ones and work my way down, add some suspense to it with my money dwindling. But with picking up the Bears, they were 200, like he said. My Now bank account hits 450.
I am going to be picking up another rather expensive team. It is the same cost as the Lions at 550, but it is not the Lions at 550. I'm picking up a share of Seahawks stock, baby.
Ooh, right.
So, just as a recap, just to reiterate, that's going to cost me 550. I'm going to be down to 150 in the bank. So, recapping the segment, I spent 1350 of my initial 1500. I got a share of the Bears stock, a share of the Jaguar stock, and a share of the Seahawks stock. Elijah,
I went ahead and I currently have 450 in the bank, spent 1050, and I walked away with the Lions, the Rams, and the Bears.
so we are going to be holding these stocks and just watching those records for the first 4 weeks, just waiting until one of them wins. Um, and after those 4 weeks, we can decide to hold on to them further, or we can sell them and move our money into other stocks. So if I decide that I'm happy with the Bears, Jags, and Seahawks, and I think by the end of the season they're going to make me the most money, I may just sit on them for a couple weeks, and then if one of them goes on a really hot streak that I don't think they can maintain, maybe I sell then, buy some other stock, and come back and buy them again later after they've lost a couple games. It's all just one big stock market exchange where you have to take risks, you have to sell at certain points, you have to buy at certain points, and we are not getting restocked in the money department throughout the season, only at the very end. So the money that we have to turn into everything else that we're going to be buying. So
Yes,
right now in my bank account, I have enough to buy an 0-4 team after the market opens, and that is it.
yes. And I strategically have left enough in the bank where I could possibly get two 0-4 teams at the end and a 1-4 team if applicable. I would max out. I would be at zero in my bank then, but I would have a good group if I felt that they were on the up and coming, as opposed to losing out for the rest of the year.
Yep. So we'll keep revisiting this segment every week. I think we'll probably hold off episode one of revisiting it. We might throw it in there just like, hey, these are the stocks we bought. And
Yes,
for the
here are the
first
stocks to watch.
for the first four, I see what you did there. For the first four episodes, we're probably not going to look at it super in depth just because the market's closed, we can't buy, we can't sell. But after those first four episodes, it's going to be every week. We're going to be talking about the moves we're making, and we're going to aim to actually make moves every week. Obviously, there's going to be some weeks where you just want to hold those
We ain't got
teams, and
no
if your
money.
teams are losing, then you kind of have to hold them. You have to hope
Yeah,
that they start winning. So if the Bears, Jags, and Seahawks all suck this year, man, I'm going to be in a deep hole. But um, I think that's just about it for this iteration of the stocks. And going into future episodes, there will always be a recap of what happened the week before in NFL news and in the games, and then there will be predictions going forward. For our first episode, or for episode one, our second episode, we are going to be going over some predictions for the full season as well as predictions for week one, obviously.
for
And
our week one episode. That's
there
how
you
we
go.
phrase it.
All right,
This is episode zero because there's no week. There's no games being played this Sunday. But
we've thought
uh,
this out very
yes,
long and in depth.
and entering week one of the season, we will not have any recapping news other than maybe a little bit of waiver wire stuff. But we will be spending that time with heavy predictive news being put out by us. Our
If you
predictions for awards, our predictions for the records at the end of the year. Every single team, it's going to be a doozy.
That one was so tough to do, man. It was so tough to predict every single team's record, but we did it. We did it because we want to make
And we're going to
entertaining
be
content,
correct.
and we're gonna be so correct.
100%.
We both agreed on everything. Um, but yeah, this has kind of been it for episode zero. We went a little bit longer than I think we anticipated. I was estimating around 30 minutes, maybe 40. We've been recording for an hour at this point.
Yes.
Um, but we'll trim it down, see how low we can get it.
Yeah.
This has been it for episode zero. Thank you all for watching. Stick around. Episode one will be coming out in less than a week, and then the concurrent episodes will have a bit of a better schedule and structure to them. This is just kind of the introductory episode, getting shoveled out as quickly as we can before
Mhm.
episode one, week one episode. Um, but yeah, I appreciate
Yep.
you all for watching. Subscribe if you want to stick around, catch the other episodes, keep up with the stock market.
Yep.
And
Check the description for all links to anything that we have. All of my shit posts on Twitter will be down there. Our official Twitter as well as Gabe's hidden with FTP Anderson and myself with FTP Jock, and the official one with tagged franchise.
also join up on the
And
Discord. If we get enough people joined up on that, we will actually start to incorporate that into each podcast episode.